Hi there. My name is Steve Fisher, and this is,
I'm Kevin Williams.
and we are Otherworldly Fundraising. We're a group of nerds who have gotten together to use our various talents to raise money for worthy charities. Every September, we have an Otherworldly Fundraising weekend in which we raise money for a different charity every year and make it a good cause. And this past year, it was Options Save Lives, which aims to help people fully recover from alcohol use disorder. The year before was Mom Bombs, and we're working on better things and well, new things for this coming year. But every month, we decide we want to have a virtual chat in which we discuss all various topics. We're equal opportunity nerds, you know? And so when we don't raise money for the monthlies, we just want to keep our name out there so we get more and more viewers. And then it's better for us in September when we have the big event and we have celebrity guests, artists, writers. Oh, it's wonderful. But this week, this month, it's October. And October is my favorite holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Or should I say Halloween is my favorite holiday, and October is probably one of my favorite months because of Halloween.
Yes.
And so we have decided to talk about the paranormal, supernatural, things that go bump in the night, and anything that you might consider to be spooky. And so I've asked Kevin to come and talk with me because I have had experience with the paranormal as an investigator. I used to belong to a local group here in Rochester, New York, and we filmed a local TV series and aired it on community access. And I know Kevin has experience in paranormal investigation. So we thought we'd come and talk about that, talk about scary things, and just in general what it is about it that we like so much. And we're looking forward to any one of you asking questions if you have any questions you want to know, or maybe even some stories about something that you saw or heard that went bump in the night one time and you want to just tell the story. We're all ears.
Yeah.
So I guess we can start. I'll ask you, Kevin. When did you realize that ghosts and ghostly things were something that interested you?
I didn't realize it initially. I can remember as a little bitty child waking up in my bed and looking around myself and seeing a ton, I don't understand it still, a ton of different shadow figures. The closest I've ever seen a rendering that looks like that, I think it was in the Fifth Kind. Is that the one that has oh shoot, I'm forgetting her name all of a sudden. But they have this scene where she's in her bed and she's kind of stuck there. She can't really move, a night terror more or less. But you see these little shadow figures walk into her room, these aliens in this film. And when I woke up as a child, I saw these shadows around me and I could see through them, the light coming from the hallway, going up the bookcase of all my toys and books. And I laid there for a minute looking and wondering what the heck is this before I screamed out and said, "Grandmother!" Who came running into my bedroom to say, "No, it's just a bad dream." But it wasn't. I was awake. I saw it. No, it was just a bad dream. And I couldn't get anybody around me, my mom, anybody, to understand that I actually saw what I saw. So eventually the story sticks. My friends are freaked out by it, of course. You're a kid, they would be. But I eventually ended up at the library and I just worked up some nerve one day to walk over to the librarian. God bless librarians. And I said, I've had this thing happen. I don't understand it. Was it a ghost? Because as a kid, you've heard ghost stories, you know ghosts.
Yeah.
And I said, "Was this a ghost?" And she said, "Well, that would be for you to figure out. But let me turn you to this book." And she introduced me to D. Scott Rogo's book, The Haunted House Handbook,
Hmm.
and a little hardback edition that I borrowed from the library, and I probably owe them some money for this. But anyways, but I took that home and I read it cover to cover, and even made notes as I read through this thing. Now, part of it made me not believe in animal spirits initially because when you take as a kid, I even knew this. When you take a picture of an animal, its eyes glow. And
Yeah.
so there was a picture of cats with their eyes glowing, and it was said that this was a picture of ghost cats. And I said, nah, that's just a flash. So that I threw that out forever
Yeah.
until. So there's a whole other story about that. But yeah, there was a time that came and I said, oh, okay, well, now I believe in ghost animals. But that was the start of it, really. And of course, in that period of time, we're talking about the I guess late 70s, early 80s. Ed and Lorraine Warren are in every National Enquirer, Weekly World News, every rag magazine that there was. So I read every article. I have still never read their books, but I have read every article from back then, and that was kind of between D. Scott Rogo, the Haunted House Handbook, and their articles was where I started reading to study up on all of this. Then, there, of course, being in Holly Springs, which was it's an antebellum city, it's pre-Civil War, right? And there are so many stories that float around those old mansions, so many stories that just are people, they experience this stuff and they talk about it
Yeah.
there. And that led me into the interviewing of people, even when I saw them out on the sidewalk, and I knew who they were because I listened to the stories, and I approached them, and they didn't want to talk to a little kid about ghost stuff. But I would walk beside them and ask them questions, and they would give me answers, and I would take that back with me. So that was a little bit of an investigative
Hmm.
notion there until I got older. And of course, when you're older and you have money to go places and do things, you start going and investigating the paranormal at places. And you also have to be careful of the groups you pick. I was a part of one group I termed the Scooby Doo group. They were out in the middle of the night running around, scaring each other, and I'm over in a corner trying to ask questions of the so-called spirit that's in this place. But so many times with that group, I ultimately just said, it's not haunted. There's no ghost here. And if there were, I can't prove it because y'all won't shut up.
Yeah.
So it took some time to get there, but eventually I was able to get with a group of folks who were so brilliant and so talented in this field that it stuck. And it was years and years and years. I still consider myself a part of things. It's just nothing's really popping up for them lately. But through word of mouth and people finding me here and there, sometimes I get a call out, and that's when I get the
Nice.
call, you got to make the answer.
Yeah.
So go out and do the investigation. What about you? What started you on this journey?
So I'm going to say that, I've always been interested in ghost stories, and I like, you know, the whole thought of ghosts and whatnot. But I think as a kid, I never really knew. I mean, you would hear ghost stories, but you didn't. I don't know if I didn't know of anything or any real ghost stories. I mean, you would hear stories that they would say, "Oh, it's real." This happened and this happened. But in my head, it's like, okay. And then I remember, um, I was out on I think I was a freshman, or it was the year after my freshman year in high school. And I ended up with this group that was doing a bike ride. And it was a 250-mile bike ride. And it was a full week, and we would ride a certain amount per day. And it was just, I don't even remember how I
Mhm.
got involved in it, but it was really fun. And I started talking to one guy, and at one point he made some mention of the Amityville Horror. And at that point, I didn't know much about it. And I liked ghost stories, but I was, growing up, horror movies were not something my parents were keen on me getting into. So hey, he's not really going to be watching anything. And so to me, the Amityville Horror, in my mind, if you would ask me what it was, I would have said it is probably like the quintessential horror movie that I didn't know much about, but that, apparently it's supposed to be this really good, scary movie. And this kid said to me, it's based on a true story. I was like, what? And I didn't know anything about what it was, but it's based on a true story. And I'm like, I don't, oh, really? And then he's like trying to tell me a little bit about it. And I'm like fascinated listening to him. And then I'm going to say probably about a year later, um, we were vacationing up in Maine, and my dad was a professional photographer for Kodak for a long time. And one of the things that Kodak used to do was send their pro photographers out to national parks in the summer to teach photography to the tourists. So we would go to Rocky Mountain National Park, and Kodak would rent us a cabin in the mountains for the entire month of July. And then my dad would go out during the days and then sometimes at night and go to a lot of the various photo spots in the national parks and teach photography. And then we were just there for the entire month enjoying ourselves. And so we've been to Rocky Mountain National Park, Grand Canyon, and then Maine, Acadia National Park, which is my favorite place in the whole world. And we were in Maine, and we had rented a house in Southwest Harbor, and they were having a sale. And a library had a book sale. And so we were there one day walking through, and there was the Amityville Horror, written by Jay Anson. And it was their library copy from Southwest Harbor, Maine, and it was on sale. And I was like, I remember, I'm going to get it. I got it, and I read it in like a day and a half. And
Wow.
it's not a very hard read, but it just drew me in, and I read it. And that was my very first introduction to Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Oh.
And I remember it was interesting because the story, whether or not it's true, I'm drawn into the whole, it could be true, the whole story part of it. But then the Ed and Lorraine Warren portion is right at the very end. And it doesn't hardly take up much of the story at all.
Mm.
And I just remember that they had a new investigator with them, and the investigator was sent down into the basement to do some research and ended up coming back upstairs and having to leave. And they were like, oh, they just can't, be a part of it. And and Kristen said she met the Warrens. I am
I'm
jealous.
very jealous. I knew someone in town once that had met them. As a matter of fact, even called Lorraine the day after we saw The Conjuring, and we asked how much of this was Hollywood and how much of it was based on the true story. And she said, "Well, in real life, uh, Annabelle is a Raggedy Ann, and we didn't have a
Yes.
music track playing under us as we lived it." Okay,
Yeah.
that was it. Oh, okay. So you experienced the rest of that. Okay.
So, but what's interesting is I remember thinking that kid that went downstairs in the basement and got freaked out and ended up having to leave, and the Warrens were like, they're obviously not going to work out as a Ghostbuster, um, or as a ghost hunter. I remember in my head thinking, I would love to work with them, but would I be able to go down in that basement by myself? And I remember putting myself in that position as a young teenager, reading this, thinking that's what I want to do.
Hmm.
I want to be with Ed and Lorraine or someone similar to go investigate, because I just read this whole haunted house story. And at the end, they have these people coming in to investigate the house. And I'm like, that is so cool. And, you know, regarding Amityville, I can say that I don't know what to believe because
Mhm.
it's been, on again, off again. Sometimes there were times when I was like, yes, I'm sure. And in other times, it's like, I don't know. And there are two camps. There are people that are like, this is crazy. Because I read a book that was written by the district attorney who prosecuted Ronald DeFeo for killing his entire family. It's called High Hopes: The Amityville Murders, and it
Mhm.
told the story of the DeFeo murders that led up to the Amityville horror, and how some people said that Ronald DeFeo looked a lot like George Lutz, and maybe they concocted this story to make it and maybe make it fake so that when the Lutzes, you know, ran away, they could say that it was ghosts and not. And I'm just like, I don't know, and I've read stories that the writer of the High Hopes book was just in it to make a money grab because he was writing his story about prosecuting this whole thing based on the popularity of Amityville, and maybe some of his stuff isn't true. So I don't know. But yeah, so I will say it was the Amityville horror that got me interested in wanting to
Wow.
um be a ghost hunter. And I never really had much of a chance until um one day working at the country club that I work at part-time. I've been there for 29 years, and I'm going to say back probably in the early 2000s, I was working with one of my coworkers, and her husband was doing ghost hunting on that day. We were working a wedding, and she goes, "Oh, my husband, he's doing a ghost hunt right now." I'm like, "What? What?" And she goes, "Yeah, they're, doing this local thing. They're filming a TV show." I'm like, "How do I get involved in this?"
Mhm.
And she goes, "Well, I'll let him know." I'm like, "Next time he goes out, let him know that I want to be a part of it." And it was around it was that year. This was I don't remember the year, but I got a call on Black Friday saying, "Hey, Steve, we're going to be doing a hunt on Sunday. Would you be willing to come and help us?" I'm like, "Yes, I'll be there." And I came, and I just had a small little camcorder, little Sony cam, but it had night vision, so I brought that with me. I had a 3.1 megapixel Kodak digital camera. I brought that with me to take pictures, and I had a blast. And they loved my video work, and they said, "How'd you like to be our lead videographer?" Okay.
Mhm.
And so we went to a bunch of places. It was all local. And Paul, who was our executive producer, um, in one of the towns in the Rochester area, Fairport, um, the Fairport Village Hall was apparently having some activity. And Paul was the executive producer of the local community access TV,
Mm.
the local cable access. And their offices were right on the top floor of the village hall. And the Fairport Police Department is within the village hall. So the first hunt that I did was right there at the village hall. So we met in the offices of the station, and then just went down and did an investigation, and it was really fun. And it's been a long time since we've done anything, and Paul has since passed on. Um,
Mhm.
and so we really haven't done anything in a while. And I mean, I don't think we'll never get the group back together again because Paul was the one that led everything, and he's not around anymore. But it was great. It was I seriously enjoyed it and became addicted. And Kristen, back about the Warrens, Kristen has said that the Warrens did a talk at her college her freshman year.
Mhm.
So
That's pretty
And
cool.
we also got a question. Is anyone? Oh, we could always start a new group. Oh, that's true. Uh, this is
Always.
Bookish Specs, my better half. She says we could always start a new group. Has anyone seen NESPR or Nesper on their recent road shows? I
I
don't know if
love that song by Aretha Franklin. NESPR. Oh wait, no, wrong thing. Okay.
I I don't know if I know what Nesper is.
Northeast Society of Psychical Research.
Okay. So
I
no, I
think
haven't seen any of their shows.
I haven't seen anything. Um, but that's pretty interesting. So when you guys were going out and investigating, what education did you have before you went out to it? Was it from reading those books? Was it from
I well, my education had just been reading books, and I had um like I would go when I would go to the bookstores and stuff or the libraries, I'd always go to the paranormal section and look at the
Mhm.
books and see if there was any new books on ghosts. And I would buy books that were like ghosts of the 19th century or something, and or like
Mhm.
an encyclopedia of ghosts, and it would just show different things. And like I remember, and I don't remember if it's called that, but it was like the brown lady on the stairs or something, some like old
Brown
famous
Lady of
photo.
Raynham Hall?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so I remember seeing all that stuff, and I didn't have very much experience at all um when they, brought me on, but I was just eager to learn, and I'm sure I still haven't learned nearly as much. Our lead investigator Paul, or not Paul, Ralph. I see Ralph from time to time, and Ralph had in the early days after we had stopped our show, he had called me every so often if he was doing an investigation, like a private investigation, someone had called him on, and I'd go and do some video work. And it was fun. And I will say one of the things that we did with our group was we had a spirit medium that was a part of our group,
Mhm.
and she would give readings, and so we actually had, in my tenure with the group, we had two spirit mediums that worked with us. And one of them, her name was Shelly, and I remember we did an investigation of a local property that was like an old farmhouse, and it is now a museum. And the house it's a beautiful house, and it was one that had like a central brick fireplace in the middle of the house. So
Mhm.
you'd walk in the front door, and there were fireplaces like, on multiple sides. And if you went in the kitchen, there were there was the big opening for the fireplace, and then there were two openings above where you could put bread in to bake bread.
Mhm.
And it was just a great house. And it was also like one of the rooms was a viewing room for people that had died, and they would lay the coffin in the one room and whatnot. And so we went to do an investigation, and whenever we would do an investigation, we would start by walking the entire place with the lights on, and having someone who was there that invited us to come explain everything that was going on. And because this had been like a museum, they had like a museum curator. And we turned all the lights on, and we left Shelly down in the living room. And then he took us around the entire house, upstairs, through all the rooms. And the curator said, you know, here are all the different things that we see or that people have experienced in the house. And he's going room to room explaining all this stuff. And then once we finished, and I'm filming the entire thing, and once we had finished, we went back downstairs, turned the lights out, and had Shelly come with us. And then we walked around the entire house again. Um, and she was the one that led us this time. the curator was with us, but she's the one that led us room to room,
Hmm.
and she was over 90% spot on with everything that he had told us. And she had not heard anything because she was told we purposely were keeping her away. And she was like, I sense this. And I was just so shocked. I mean, I had never experienced anything like that
It's
before.
impressive when somebody can do that.
And the curator was blown away, like totally blown away. And it was great. And it was just it was so fun and I really enjoyed doing it. And I know I have a couple of CDs because Paul, our executive producer, we got a lot of positive comments and reviews from people locally when we would show up on the community access. And Paul would, all the local suburban towns around Rochester, all had their own community access television channels. It was either like on channel 12 or channel 15 on the cable box. And so Paul would send um, DVDs to all of them with the videos on them. And so they would air them, and we got a lot of positive comments and reviews. And so Paul was hoping to take us national because this was like during the early days of the ghost hunter TV craze when, all of the, you know, shows were just starting out and
Hmm.
becoming really popular. And being that Paul was, the manager of the local Fairport Community Access, he goes, I'm part of the larger network of stations all over the country. So his goal was to get copies of our videos into the larger markets like Chicago and Los Angeles and San
Hmm.
Francisco, New York, and maybe hope that someone of importance would see it and say, "Hey, we want to contact these people." And but that never happened. And I'm not in Hollywood right now. You don't, you're not seeing me on TV every day. So, but it was fun, and I do miss it, and I'd like to get back to it.
Yeah. Well, you saw the post there a moment ago. Start a new group
Yes,
and
yes.
get out and do that. Another book that I suggest for learning more about it is a book by Lloyd Auerbach. It's called
Okay.
ESP Hauntings and Poltergeist: A Parapsychologist's Handbook, and it is probably about 2.5 or 3 inches thick, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's digest size, which means there's a lot of
Oh,
little
wow. Yeah, yeah.
letters, a lot of information in this thing, and so much fun to go through and read that. And of course, you don't have to study the SP and other parapsychological
Yeah.
information that's in it. You can just focus on the ghost part of it, but it's very informative. My
Huh.
copy has a lot of yellow highlight all the way through.
I'm definitely
I
gonna have to.
yeah, and it's available, but only secondhand. You can't find it
Yeah.
published
Oh, yeah.
brand
No,
new.
I'll definitely look. And I want to find that other book too, the one that you talked about initially.
I haven't found copies of D. Scott Rogo's Haunted House Handbook anywhere
Huh.
online.
Okay.
So I need to look again and see if it's out there, and
Yeah.
that would be interesting to see if that's still available at all. But when it came to it, I did a lot of my research through those books, and trying to see what kind of information JB Ryan had out there, and trying to find all of these people with all of this information about paranormal investigation. Right,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, we're stuck on the title of ghost hunting, but one of my friends, Steven, he says that it's more like ghost fishing. And I said, yeah, you're right. He's
Yeah.
brilliant investigator, also. As a matter of fact, I used to, he heads up the team that I'm a part of as well. And he also runs a haunted tour company.
Oh,
And basically, the places that the tour company takes people are places we've actually investigated. So when people go on this tour, they're not just getting second, third, fourth hand stories of
yeah.
what somebody else said. they're going into a place where we have somewhere in archives there is evidence of these places that we went, and the experiences that we have are reported through these tours, right? But he runs all of that, and just brilliant person. And like I said, that group in particular, when I finally was able to connect with them, and they weren't just Scooby doing it through the night, that it was an actual investigative team, that they used all of these great scientific approaches to it. I was just thrilled to be a part of that. Still
Yeah.
am. And at that point, I built my quote unquote arsenal of equipment uh, to go do these, and I really only use about 3 items mostly
Yeah.
from the equipment that I use when I do that. But education, knowing which investigators are out there that are the ones to follow, to learn more from them
Hmm.
and their work, right? To paying attention also to what it means to be an investigator. When I've done conventions and I've talked about paranormal investigations, a couple things that I repeat myself on a lot, of course, but the main thing is that the only consistent thing about the paranormal is its inconsistencies.
True that.
It is constantly changing. Every case is different. Every situation is different. Just like the people experiencing it and the places that you're going, everything is different every time. And we don't get straight up answers every time from when we're investigating. I've got a ton of questions about the other side of this life, right? Once we cross
Yeah.
from here and transition to that, I've got a bunch of questions, but you don't really get a lot of the answers to those questions. It's more or less, you know, yes no answers to the questions you ask through the equipment,
Yeah.
and there's never been a ghost that went into a laboratory and sat down and said, okay, this is how it goes. We just have to hope that the information we're getting is factual and true when it's happening, and of course
Well,
our equipment's about the best for it.
that's exactly what I was going to say. You have to know, or hope that the yes you're getting is a legit yes,
Hmm.
you know, because if you were to have the ghost say, "Well, here, let me tell you what it's like," you don't know. You don't know what to believe,
No, no, we would never know if what they're telling us is true or not.
until
um
that day when you show up there and he's like, "Hey, hey, remember that time oh, that was you?"
yeah, yep,
Oh,
yep. Well, we one of the areas, so the tour used to start and end, the one that I would lead for a while. It would start and end at a shop that at one time was a restaurant, and a police officer was brutally shot, murdered there.
hmm.
As I've researched the story of the whole thing further, it's turned into more of an idea that this was all set up. He was definitely murdered, but murdered by people he knew
Oh,
through strangers, so that it didn't get traced back. But he was kind of involved in a bit of a controversy about unionization of the Memphis Street Railway Company.
hmm.
And long story, we'll tell at a different time about his history. But
Yeah.
um, we happened to be in the basement of this place because everybody was talking about weird things happening there. Well, the tour ended this last hour. First hour was walking around the city. The second hour was in this basement doing investigation work. So while I was there, I was actually investigating and asking questions while trying to get these folks that were there some communication as well, right? Um, and things that I learned were, be careful of your questions because they're jokesters on the other side as well. If
Oh,
you
yeah.
waste their energy for a joke answer, they'll do that, and then you don't get anything else. So if you say, "Can you say your name?" and through the voice box, or they call it a spirit box, but it comes through that little broken radio and says yes, that's the only answer you're getting.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to a point where there's yes, no question sessions, but I also have to phrase questions in a way that are kind command type things,
Yeah, what is
such
your name?
as, right, please tell us your name,
Hmm.
rather than, can you tell us your name? Because
Yeah.
please tell us your name, you're going to get Steven. Will you tell us your name? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to. I've just used up my energy. Holla, you know? But through all of that, and using a K2 meter, using this spirit box, which I prefer to call a voice box because it's not spiritual, um, using all of these different tools like this, we've been able to, you find out things by just asking questions at multiple locations, and if the answers are consistent, there's a possibility that that could be the right answer, right? And I'm
Yes.
saying possibility because they have not yet said, "Hi, I'm a ghost, and this is 100% the thing." Hand on the Bible, swear to God,
Hmm.
right? So what we've learned is that there are certain levels of energy that you're allotted on the other side. When I say what we've learned, is what we've learned that is possibly true based on multiple investigations at multiple
Observations. Yes.
locations, right? So, because of the inconsistencies, don't take this all at 100% until that day comes. But there's multiple levels of energy on the other side. Some people communicate with the investigators on behalf of others because there's not enough energy for that person, right? There was a daughter that responded just her initial and said D, and her mom and sister were there and recognized Danielle's voice.
Hmm.
Then it was all K2, and a man's voice came through the spirit box. But his answer was yes, he was there to help with that the responses for Danielle because she didn't have enough energy. There are rules on the other side. There are consequences for breaking the rules. We don't know the rules yet. Nobody has spoken up, and
Hmm.
I don't know what those
Yeah.
consequences are. So these are just some of the things that I've asked over time because of my own curiosity into the
Oh
paranormal
yeah.
to try to figure that out. Um,
We have
you've got
some
a
questions
post
coming in.
here.
Yeah, so let's go. We'll start here. Kristen says, I've been on ghost tours in Spring, Texas, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Marietta, Georgia.
Yeah. Kristen,
And
come to Memphis and go to Historical Haunts Memphis and take the tours because it goes directly to places that we've actually investigated. You'll
that's
be
great.
walking in my footsteps.
And Otherworldly Fundraising, but I think that's our producer Hannah behind the scenes. She said, I never did a ghost tour outside Salem walking tours, but I did get a tour and stay overnight at the Lizzie Borden B&B before they changed ownership.
Oh, nice. I heard staying there is a big cut up, but I'll
All
take a
right.
hack at
And
that one.
Bookish Becks, my grandparents' house is haunted, and growing up, we spent a lot of time there. We saw and heard many things. That was my first experience with the paranormal. The house is over 100 years old.
Nice.
Playing after
And
dark in the yard, sometimes we would see other kids that weren't part of our group. And there was only one neighbor, and they didn't have any kids there. And I can
ooh,
tell you because I've been to this grandparents' house. So when her grandmother passed away, her aunt Cindy was living at the house. Still is. I mean, she was living at the house, and so it's her house now. So she lives there, and so I've been there numerous times. Um, and apparently, one of the rooms upstairs I mean, the whole house is haunted, but there are two rooms upstairs that are haunted. I've never been upstairs, because I mean, there's a bathroom downstairs, and whenever I'm over, we're just there to hang out. So I've never really had any cause to go upstairs.
mhm.
But Beck says she'll take me up there next time. But yeah, she's said that there's stuff in the house, and so it's very nothing bad, just there. She says so.
And sometimes that's what you hear from a lot of people. They're having these experiences, but there's nothing negative within those experiences. Now, then you
Yeah,
also hear from some people who want so badly to be haunted by the most frightening demonic thing they've ever seen in a movie, right? I've seen some of those reports before. Even to the point of one report, there was a dragon that would fly over their house.
Huh.
Funny.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. So, you get a lot of crazy stuff out there. And then I've also had people that were, you know, not haunted by anything, but they had this great ring camera footage of a bug. And I have learned over the years that when people send me things, to ask them, do you want to be haunted or do you want the answer? Right? Because you can waste a lot of time when somebody says, "Hey, what's this?" and you say, "Oh, that's a bug." Well, I don't know about that now because blah 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 blah. Blah. Like, okay,
Yeah.
it's a bug, but whatever floats your boat. So, but I think that those stories like that, where you've been in the haunted house, you've lived there. Mine had some stuff going on for a little while, but that's done now. Busted. No, but this house had some stuff. But when you live through it and you experience it, you begin to be part of that other story that you don't see on TV or in the movies, because living with them peacefully, them being spirits, living with that type of energy peacefully doesn't really make for an interesting story much,
No.
right? Um, so you don't really see a lot of that out there. You don't hear a lot of people talking about that out there, but
Yeah.
it's so I love when there's a good story about it that pops through.
Yeah.
One story that was a good story, part of the story was good. We were at one property, and of course, I'm trying to keep everything as like
Oh, I understand.
anonymous as possible because there
Correct.
were actual families. But
Yes.
one story, we were at this property, and the man of the household who had passed away in the house, his voice was coming through the voice box. And I made mention to his wife and son who were there with me at that moment. All of us were in the room at the same time. And I said, they both said, that's his voice. That's absolutely his voice. We know it's his voice. And I said, well, then he's here with us. If you have something to say it real quick while he's got the energy and all. And she said, honey, I miss you and I love you. And through that voice box, loud and clear came, I love you. And not a dry
Wow.
eye. Every one of us broke down.
Wow.
And then we had to take a break because that
Huh. Yeah.
house was full of energy. Now, the other part of that, when you go through a house to investigate, the first thing you do, which you mentioned earlier, you do a walkthrough, you
Hmm.
do a baseline reading, so you can tell where all of the electrical explosions are throughout the house, more or less, so
Yeah.
that when your K2 meter goes off later, you know that this is going off because this area is hot with electromagnetic fields, right?
Yeah.
And not a ghost doing it. As I did a baseline reading through that house, it was so unhealthy with EMF because the kitchen was a fear cage itself
Wow.
with appliances from the 50s and 60s, electrical appliances from that far back.
Yeah.
You just felt a tingle on your own body just walking through there.
Yeah. And
And
for
every room of the house had a big giant TV, big
okay.
tube TVs, VCR, DVD, game system, radio
Yeah.
clock, all of these things in every room. And I told them afterwards, you got to unplug. You've got to get rid of like the majority of this stuff because this is dangerous. It's not healthy.
Yeah. And just for anyone that would be watching that doesn't know what a fear cage is, it is like if some people are downstairs in their basement and they always have this creepy feeling like someone's watching them. You
Mhm.
know, it could be the electrical box, it could be a lot of the electrical running from the ceiling that is just leaking out electricity, electromagnetic stuff, and it's causing you to feel the creep. It's causing you to think that you're being watched when it's just the electricity that's like charged the air. And once that's gone and the electricity is been removed, if things have been unplugged, or you'll have an electrician come and maybe seal up the stuff, insulate the wires,
Mhm.
that feeling goes away. And so when people talk about a fear cage, it's usually because the place isn't haunted. It just, the wiring's old enough that if you're in the basement, you're gonna feel a little bit of a electricity jolt.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
And there was one other note that popped up there a second ago, I think.
yeah. Kristen had said her dorm was haunted in college. Let's see. My dorm was haunted in college. It was even mentioned in the Ghosts of Lehigh Valley.
Oh, cool.
And Kristen texted me a picture.
Oh,
Let's see. Oh, all right. I'm going to so what I'm going to do is download this and send it. So we'll keep talking while I'm
okay.
sending the picture.
Cool.
Um
Okay. I'm
but
looking forward to seeing that.
yeah. Um we're sending it to
I wonder why the cats, Kristen would be afraid to go into the room where he died. So Kristen wrote that her dad was in their house for a bit after he died. He died in the house. Cats would be afraid to go into the room where he died, and that's curious to me because the cats would have been used to him before. Hmm. Interesting. So the animal ghosts, and just to put it quickly, the reason why I
Mhm.
began to believe in animal ghosts again, we were doing an investigation tour at the beautiful Woodruff Fontaine House Museum here in Memphis, constructed from the basement to the top of the tower, the carriage house, the grounds. It's a museum, so you can get in and see all of the areas. It's just beautiful. And oh, okay, so your dad hates cats. That's why they wouldn't go into the room. Gotcha. That answers everything. No pets before your dad died, and he absolutely okay. That's why they wouldn't go in there. So you just answered my question. Thank you. But we were in the parlor of the property as part of the investigation tour, and I felt something rubbing against my the calves of my legs. And one of the guys there said, "Hey man, there's a black mass just moved from your between your legs." And I didn't have Taco Bell before, so I know it wasn't that. But then somebody mentioned that in the corner of the room they could hear scratching. And when we all got really quiet, there were 3 faint meows. And so I went running outside, making a lot of racket, and there was no animal movement outside at all. So I came back inside and said, I think that we experienced a ghost of a cat in the Woodruff Fontaine house. Um, Ghost hunters actually came to town and did a show there and investigated, and they mistook the meow as a woman's voice on the show. When I saw the show and heard it, I said, "Oh no, no, no,
Mm.
that's cat. That's what we heard." So they have video evidence of the cat meowing, and then eventually someone else took a picture of the grand staircase that goes up in the house, and on the stairs is a perfect little shadowy shape of a cat.
Huh.
And so Woodruff Fontaine House let me believe in spirits of animals as opposed to where I was before just seeing the pictures. Um, but what about you? Have you had any spirit experiences?
Um
It's so
not
uncommon.
not that I know of, although um so when I met Rebecca, she had a cat. Her name was Tempest.
Mhm.
And Tempest was living in Rebecca's apartment. And then when Rebecca moved in with me, Tempest came to live with us. And we, at that point, Rebecca had adopted another cat, Spooky. And so Tempest and Spooky, were together. And Tempest came to live with us. And she got sick and died. And she got really sick and we had to put her to sleep. Turns out on my birthday, in 2020, during lockdown.
Mm,
And every so often, Rebecca thinks that she's heard Tempest or felt Tempest in the apartment still. Um, and I don't know, maybe she's around.
yeah.
And I have the picture that Kristen sent,
Okay.
and it's very hard to see, but she said, let me get her. Oops, let's where is the comments? Okay, we'll take her comment off. And the message that she sent me, um this photo is from the Panama Canal,
No.
and I see a picture filled with orbs. Now, I know some orbs are nothing but dust. And especially in a lot of old places, a lot of old houses, there's a lot of dust that
Right.
you can see, but this looks like it was outside.
Is the picture coming up?
Oh, do you not see anything?
No.
No, it's blank.
Let me block the light out from myself. Is
Oh,
it just a black image
it's
with?
a
It's very dark.
it is a very, very dark image. It looks like a horizon, looks like the sun has set or is on the verge of coming up,
Okay,
but
yeah. So I
it
do see it. My camera is or my light
oh,
in the studio room is
yeah,
bright.
no, I
Okay.
get it. I get it. So it's
And
hard to see.
so there what's going to intrigue me about this a little bit, and then I'll talk about my experience with orbs. Okay.
Yeah.
What intrigues me about that is that when I block the light, I could see kind of swooping across the picture there different light orbs, we'll call it, okay.
Mhm.
Um, but what was interesting to me is that typically what people associate as orbs are because it's dust
Mhm.
or moisture or bugs, right?
Mhm.
Um, there's not really a light source there that I can see that creates orbs. Oh, the other way that orbs happen are reflections in the lens of a
Yeah.
camera, right?
Mhm.
So that makes it look like there's an orb there when it's not. But
Yeah.
I don't see a light source in that picture to create what was there. So while orbs are tricky in that the actual spiritual orbs and somewhere in our archives there is with the investigation team. I don't have access to these,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah.
They're in a different library than mine. But there is a video of an orb that comes into a room, circles, and then flies back out, right? Bugs don't move with intention. Bugs move
Yeah.
like, oh, dude, what am I doing? I don't know.
Yep.
You know. Plus, an actual orb is self-illuminating, right? It's
Mhm.
not reflecting light; it's projecting light.
Yes.
Okay, and so those that when you see that, that's when you're actually dealing with your orb, right? Is when it's bright and it's lit up. When I'm looking at that picture, though, I don't see anything that would be projecting light out at what we are looking at. She says at the Panama Canal.
Yes.
I can't see um how that could be creating just by being there. I don't see how that could be creating orbs
Yeah.
without unless there was a flash used in the darkness, which wouldn't work because there's nothing for the flash to hit there, right? Like is that
Mhm.
I'm assuming that it's probably a picture over the ocean maybe or over water
It
possibly.
looks like it could be.
Yeah, at maybe like you said, a sunrise or sunset. But I don't see a flash would make a flash would create more orbs than that, and it would reflect the moisture even more so than what we see in that picture. So could
Yeah.
be could be some spiritual stuff there, you know.
So I have an interesting story to tell. Locally,
Pardon me 1
Um,
second.
oh, sure.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Locally, I'm gonna say this is probably um it's about maybe 25 minutes west of Rochester is a an old sanatorium. It's called Rolling Hills.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And it was a sanatorium, it was an asylum, and it is purportedly to be one of the most haunted places around. And I know that various ghost TV shows, investigators have been there.
Mhm.
Um, and I've been there numerous times. And one year we decided that we were going to do an overnight ghost hunt, an 8-hour ghost hunt, because they offer, various ghost hunts. You can go for, just a couple of hours. You can go for just a basic tour. Sometimes in the summer, they offer movies where you can watch, like, Dracula and Frankenstein or something, and they'll have like a double feature. And then in between the movies, you'll get a brief tour of the place. And so I went, and the woman that owns it, Eileen, she will give you a tour, take you all around and say, here are all the different things that people have seen. Here's where things are, and here's what is seen here, here's what's seen here, and whatnot. And she is someone who's very much like, and I don't want anyone to be instigating any of the ghosts.
No
Don't do
provoking. That
anything
is
like
a
that. No,
yeah, I
no
hate
provoking.
that.
Um, and even if you've been there before, you still have to go through this like 20-minute tour before you start investigating, and it's fine. And a lot of times when you go, there'll be a lot of different people that show up. So you may be with one group investigating, but you have to keep in mind there are people with other groups that are doing their thing. So when you're hearing noises and listening, try to just put it in your head as to where different people are.
Mhm.
So I went um with Rebecca came with me. I think it was before we were married.
Mhm.
Um but now she's not remembering. Well, so it was Rebecca. It was a friend, Eric. It was a friend, Christine, and it was one of our super friends, Stephanie.
Oh, yeah.
And so we went and did the 8-hour ghost hunt. And so it's interesting, Stephanie um was kind of a skeptical believer. I mean, she wasn't sure, she believes in ghosts from the point of view of, her being religious and knowing that there are ghosts in the Bible. She's going to take that on faith that there are ghosts. But if, there's something spooking around in your house, she's not sure. So we're walking around in one of the places within this big facility is the old boiler room. And
Mhm.
I mean, the place doesn't really, it's not, um, functioning anymore. So the boiler room isn't really a boiler room. It's just the old boiler area. And I don't remember the guy's name, but the guy that's supposed to haunt the boiler room is he's supposed to be fairly mean, and he pretty much just stays down there. And so we were down there, and the boiler room is like kind of like a split level. So if you're walking down the main hallway, there's some stairs, you go down a little bit, and there's where the boilers were and everything else. Or if you continue to walk down the hallway, there is probably about maybe to my chest level or just below my chest would be a wall, and then it's open above the wall so you can look down into the boiler room from the hallway. Um, but then if you're down in the boiler room, the wall, is above your head. And so we're standing in the boiler room and we're talking and we're just, trying to see if we can, contact anybody. And up against the wall is a plastic lawn chair. And Stephanie's sitting in the lawn chair. And I was talking about Photoshop and how, and it's even more so now, but this is probably 10 years ago or more. And I was saying how you see a lot of images when you're looking online and you're going to paranormal forums and stuff, and people are showing pictures of something they took, or a picture of something. I said, you got to be very careful now, because
Mhm.
it's very easy to fake something in Photoshop. And I said, regarding video, that's a little bit harder. And this was 10 years ago, before the
Mhm.
whole advent of AI. And I'm like, regarding video, if you see something there, it's a little bit harder to, and as I'm saying, it's a little bit harder to fake. She jumps up from her chair and she freaks out, comes running directly at me, runs around behind me, puts her hands on my shoulders and kind of like ducks down. And I'm like, what just happened? She goes, you were sitting there talking, and all of a sudden I felt somebody blow on the back of my neck. And then this heat radiating from the seat of the chair all the way up to the back of my base of my spine.
Mm.
And something was there that like blew on me. And she got so freaked out and came running right at me. And what I didn't do, and I wish I had, was because I have like one of those handheld digital thermometers that's got like a laser pointer, and it'll tell you when you point
Mhm.
it at something. I wish I had pointed it at the chair just to see what, if there was a temperature, whatever the temperature was in the chair, and then maybe wait like 10 minutes and take another baseline reading to see if there was anything different. I mean, it would have been
Mhm.
warmer just because she was sitting there, but I would have been interested to see, how much warmer it was. But,
Right.
and so she didn't want to stay in the boiler room at that point. And I'm like, okay. So then we walked up the little stairs to the hallway and started walking down the hallway. Um, and then we're probably maybe like 10 feet further down the hallway. And my friend Christine looks at me and she's like, what? I'm like, what do you, I don't, what? She goes, did you just say, I just heard somebody like very softly say, touch me. I'm like, that wasn't me. And she's like, I heard that. I'm like, it wasn't me. And so when I was figuring out I was going to tell this story um tonight, I contacted Stephanie and I asked her for permission to tell the story. And I said, if you prefer, I can just say this happened to a friend of mine. And she goes, no, even though I don't really want to talk about it, it's okay if you talk about it and
Mm.
you can say it was me. And she says, oh, and by the way, I never told you back then, but I did hear that voice that said, touch me, at the same time that Christine heard it. And I was like, wow. I'm like, thank you for saying that, because I had no idea. I know Christine had heard it, but nobody else said anything. And I mean, I wasn't not believing Christine, but the fact that Stephanie tells me she heard it too, it
Mhm.
just adds credence to the whole thing. Um, and I think that was the last time I was at Rolling Hills. I so want to go back there. I don't want to go back there right now because Halloween is a hotbed for people that want to go there.
Mhm.
Rebecca said it's too cold because, the boiler doesn't work anymore, so there's no heat
Right.
in place.
Right. And
Um,
and Halloween brings out a lot of those Scooby Doo folks that's looking for the
yes,
midnight boo and
correct,
not
correct, and that's
actually
not what I want.
investigating. Mm.
Um, but I mean, and so Rebecca says it's too cold. Well, personally, I would like to go and investigate, like, the places that say that they're haunted, that, have these, you can come and pay a little money and come and investigate. I wanna go when it's coldest. I wanna
Mhm.
go when nobody else is gonna wanna go out and go there, because then I know that we're gonna have the place almost to ourselves. I mean, yeah, there'll be a few other diehards,
Yeah.
but, if it's July 13th and it's 75 degrees out, you're gonna have a lot more people than if it's February 2nd and it's, 28 degrees out.
Right.
Just don't wear a puffy jacket and go whoosh, 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 whoosh,
That would be the worst.
because then
That would
everyone's like,
be
"Oh, I hear it.
contamination
I
galore.
hear it."
Yeah. And that whole part of touch me, when you think about that, it could have been, it's a sanatorium, so it could have been somebody that was, a gross individual, or walking down a hallway, somebody might have been walking down and we don't see them to say, pardon me, excuse me, or move out of the way. Well, suppose we bump them. And they're like,
Yeah.
you touched me. And all we hear is touch me, right? So there could be that whole portion of the communication as well.
All
Um,
right.
we
Kristen.
we in, we investigated a Masonic lodge here in town, and this is just to the weather part of things.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of the dog days of summer when we went there, and this building, built in the late 1800s, refurbished in the early 1900s, did not have air conditioning at
Mm.
all. And when we got to the tip top area of this place, in one of the temples of the lodge, it was an oven, and I was sweating from areas I didn't even know could sweat. And so, it was an interesting night in itself to begin with, but the one thing that always sticks out in my mind, is the heat, and the just being uncomfortable with that, and
Yeah.
thinking, and actually I said it out loud at one point too. Look, if you're here and you're haunting this joint, please come out here and give us some evidence so we can get out of here and go home where there's a second air conditioning.
Oh.
And nothing was happening at that point yet. So
Yeah.
I was glad to get that one wrapped up for sure. But there are places, for example, in Red Boiling Springs, Tennessee, is the Thomas House Hotel. There's a whole lot of stories about that place in particular, and it's a bed and breakfast. If they have enough people, it's breakfast. But if not, there's a pizza parlor up the road.
Okay.
But you can rent the place and stay there a couple of the nights. There's a couple of paid groups that go, so it's kind of watch their calendar to see when is a weekend that's safe to go, so you're not dealing with a bunch of wannabes, I want to call it,
Yeah.
because folks see things on TV and that's the extent of their interest, not really why these things happen, who's doing it,
Mhm.
why that person is here, all of these things that we ask about when we do actual investigations. So you don't want to be there with them, like you said, because too
Yeah.
much contamination. There's no evidence really at that point. We did a investigation tour at. This is another Woodward Fontaine House story. I love the place. We were doing one there one night, and I told the people in my group, when you speak, you can speak softly, as if you're trying to keep the conversation between you and one of your closest confidants. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to, talk at a louder voice in a
Yeah.
room, because we don't want to contaminate the other teams on the different floors. So just, talk regular, talk soft. They'll hear you if they're here. We're all asking questions and nothing is happening. And this one lady goes, "Oh, may I ask a question?" And I said, "Sure." And at the top of her lungs, she starts asking a question that the people on the third floor of the building, you could hear somebody shout out and say, "We hear you." Like, yeah. So, ma'am, you don't have to speak loud. You're not trying to wake the dead. They're here if they're here.
You're trying to commune with the dead.
Yes, we're just communicating. Just speak regular. They'll hear you. Oh, okay. She did it one more time, and then I said, "Okay, I'll let you participate by listening for the rest of the night."
All right. Kristen sent another picture.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Let's see. She.
So she got a picture of Slimer from Ghostbusters here, flying away, it looks like.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Well, there's a little bit more to this than that green blob.
Yeah.
And you see in the foreground that brighter green blob and in the background that lighter green blob.
Yes.
And
Yes.
in the middle of it, I see a black figure, a
Oh,
shadowy figure that looks like the shape of a person. And to me, I don't know what that is, but to me, that seems to be a point of attention to be made.
yeah. I see that now.
That's more intriguing to me than the blobs are. I'm gonna look really weird on my camera for a second as I
Yeah. No. 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 Me too.
get to the screen. I think we're both doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like there's a figure there. It's almost like that poster from The Exorcist where the priest is standing under the light from the street lamp.
Lancaster Marin.
Yeah, yep. And it kind of looks like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let's go to
Oh,
comments.
interesting. But looking at the
The
windows
figure
and the
is a
signage.
statue. Okay. She says it's a statue. It's a statue of
Oh, that's
Athena.
a statue. Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad that she told us that.
Yeah. It's the scientific method. You wanna, you see something, well, what can it be before you say it's a ghost or find out if somebody else has seen
Mhm.
it, and there we
We
found
call
out
that
it's statue.
debunking. We
Yes.
call it debunking. And that kind of leads us to another part of the conversation here is, what is the process for an investigation? And that is that I believe you believe what's happening, right? Like I understand your story and I'm with you on it because I am a believer, but I have to go into it to debunk it. I have to disprove everything that you're telling. Every
Mm,
account that you're giving me, it has to be disproven because we have to separate out what's natural and then what's preternatural. We
mhm.
have to go in and say these things, right? So, like when I go to a property, to somebody's house, I'm trying to figure out why they're experiencing what they're experiencing, right? Are those knocks coming from a spirit rapping on a wall, or is it the pipes in the wall, right?
Yeah.
Is it because birds are landing on the wire to the house a certain way, and that wire is maybe loose and hitting something that makes the house go doop 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 doop, right?
Mhm.
Um, one recent investigation, um, the there is a EMF that emanates from a wall about 3 feet out,
Wow.
goes into their dining room where you're sitting, and into a bedroom. The headboard of the bed is pressed against that wall, right? And so, in my mind, when you're seeing things, and your head and your whole upper torso basically is now within that field of electromagnetic
Mhm.
energy, it's going to mess with this in here and make you see things that are
Yes.
happening. Right? It's healthier when you go in, mentally healthier, I guess. I don't know. But when you go in and you can say, okay, look at this. The EMF stretches from this wall all the way over to this point of your bed. My suggestion is put the bed in a different area of the room if this room is going to be used for a bedroom because
Yeah.
it's unhealthy to sleep that way all night long.
Yeah.
You know? So debunking, it's going through and finding all of the natural causes against why there are paranormal feelings of something
Yes.
going on. And I think that's one part of it. Your baseline readings when you go through to say, okay, well, here's the things that are natural in the house that might be causing this is your really that's your first step. Debunking
Yeah.
is your second, and that debunking comes from your baseline readings. Then you've got everything else that you can't explain.
Mhm.
So I know that in Memphis there is one group that will certify your property is haunted. Anyways, that's not a thing, right? So I can give you the evidence. If you're my client, I'll give you the evidence eventually when I have it all wrapped up.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what I experienced and how it correlates with what you experienced. And then you make that decision for yourself, right? If you're
Yes.
haunted or not. Now, one property we investigated, I actually ran out.
Oh,
It was physically, I was challenging what was there, and it did not like it, and it was physically gripping me through here on my face, like trying to shut me up, gripping my face.
yeah. Wow.
And we had a psychic medium there with us that night, and uh, when it started happening, and I looked at her, I went, "Hey," like that, and she looks at me, and she goes, "Get out now, go." I booked. I jet out of that place so fast, man.
Mm,
A little bit of a cold chill thinking about that property.
yeah.
Um, the energy there, it was a negative energy that was at that property. When we started, when we got done, it wasn't there anymore.
Good.
But when we started, I walked into the house and I could feel where it was. That's how, and I'm not a feely, like, I'm not psychic. I'm not
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Hmm.
any of that, right? But I knew where to go in the house. That's how strong this thing was.
Wow.
But when I first walked in, it felt like I was walking into a thick fog, basically. And one of our investigators with us, I said, hey, I think we need to go this way. And I asked the homeowner that was there, what's this way? He said, that's the bedroom. I said, may I? He goes, you got the run of the house. I said, all right. Went walking through there straight into a bathroom area where stuff had happened to him. I didn't even know. I didn't know the story of this property fully, right? Just a
Yeah.
couple things here and there by the time I got there. And Erin was the psychic medium, came into the room and she was standing there and she goes, "Are you okay?" And I wasn't, because at that point already the backside of my head, lower part of the skull back here, I think they described it as though whatever was there was messing with my chakra.
Hmm.
uh, I'm not smart about the chakras, so I probably would describe it all wrong. But it felt like something was trying to crush my skull back there, like push it together. It was a pressure. And she came over. She had a couple of different gemstones in her hand, and I didn't know what she was doing or why she was doing it. She didn't even tell me about chakra. She didn't tell me that something was trying to control me from back here, any of
Mm.
that. She just walked over and put those stones on the back of my head, and she goes, "Keep doing what you're doing." And I said, "Okay." So I kept investigating, and eventually she says, "Are you? How do you feel?" I said, "Well, I feel fine." She goes, "Do you still have the pressure on your head?" And I said, "Well, no." And she goes, "Okay." She took those, put them in her pocket, and walked on. So I don't know what the disconnection was between me and it by those being there.
Yeah.
Not in my wheelhouse of knowledge,
Hmm.
but that was part of it. But that property, so many things happened that night. I mean, that would be a whole other show for you. But
Mm.
it was interesting. That was one of the things that made me run. The stuff that happened in my house here, on the other hand, I was calling out to whatever was there to materialize and let's fight. Because it caused my dog to not be able to use her legs. Like it paralyzed her for just a brief moment, and
Mm.
she fell on the floor. And when I said, "Come in here now," to the other room, all she did was just take her paw and reach out to me and like drag it across the floor and whimper. And I said, "Oh no."
Mm.
I went and grabbed her up and brought her to the whole front end of the house. And then I went to the back part of the house and it was ready to be on. The boiler room of my house was the spot where this was focused. And I threw that door open and I said, "Materialize, come on, materialize. Let's do this right now. You, me in this house." Uh, it was ridiculous, but yeah, I was ready to fist fight whatever it was. I didn't
Mm.
care. You don't mess with a boy's dog. You just don't.
No. No.
And so that was a case where it was something not good. I didn't run. A case where something was not good and was meddling with me, so I did run.
Hmm.
But yeah, so have you ever had anything that made you that uncomfortable, that made you feel like, oh, I got to get?
I'm gonna say probably not. Um, I don't think, you know, I've not experienced enough to have something go that sideways for me.
If it ever happens, the one thing I want to emphasize at this is that ultimately we are the ones with the power, right?
Yes.
So if you're a homeowner, for example, and this stuff is going on, the reason why that was able to be quelled at that property in particular was because quelled. What?
Mm,
Anyways, is after that happened to me, I came back in and I was on a rip. I was mad that something was messing with me. For a brief moment, I almost started to leave, like completely leave the property.
yeah.
And as I put my hand in my pocket and grabbed my keys, I thought about it. This is what it wants. Whatever this thing is, it's what it wants me to do.
Mhm.
So, and as a side note, by the way, at one point I said, "I command you to tell me your name," and it said God. And you had the religious folks amongst us. Well, let's just say it this way: you had the Christian folks amongst us, the atheists amongst us, the pagans amongst us, and the agnostics amongst us. Which one, two of each of us, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. Um, every one of us at that point when it said God, every one of us went, So yeah, so when that happened, I got mad. I went back into the property and I demanded more information and I wasn't getting what I wanted. So I said, "All right." So I took a notebook and I started writing down these empowering statements that I gave to the homeowner and I said, "Start reading these off now." And part of it was a girlfriend that had passed away, but she was being held back. So when you're listening to the voice box responses, you could hear the woman voice in the background, but in the foreground, whatever this other thing was going, shut up, shh, like really angry and like gritting his teeth and gruff. You could hear these things. Be
Mm,
quiet. All those things. Now, speaking in English, I don't know why I chose English or who it was or what it was, any of that yet. But I gave this guy a list of empowering statements that he was to say to her to empower her and things to take his own power back from whatever this other thing was, right?
mhm.
By the time we left there, her voice was strong through the voice box. Whatever else was there was not. The house where it felt initially the first time that I got there, it felt like walking into a real thick fog.
Yeah.
That feeling wasn't there anymore. It
Oh,
was
good.
calm, it was collected, and I looked over at, our psychic medium friend, and I said, "I feel comfortable here. I feel like this is a place we've hung out multiple times at this point." And she
Mhm.
said, "Yeah." She said, "It's not here right now." I said, "Is it gone?" And she said, "I'm gonna guess so, because it just cleared out."
Mm.
So I told him, I said, "Read these affirmations every day, at least for a while."
Yeah.
And keep control of your property. So one thing I would tell the homeowners is that you have the right to tell these things if they're there and you're uncomfortable. Hey, it's my house. You don't belong here. Get out. You
Yeah.
have to leave. You have to go somewhere, and it can't be here. Go, right? And that can work. I don't remember what the question was.
Uh, no. Oh, so we can go back to, I don't even remember what the question was either. So,
You question?
well, yeah, I think this goes back to the picture that Kristen took, um, where we saw the statue. It's
Oh yeah, yeah. The doves have been quiet,
a
but suddenly
dove
became
coop in Spring, Texas. The doves have been quiet, but suddenly became agitated.
oh. So I don't know the area where that picture is taken. And I don't know what the lighting is like. I know that the statue was throwing me, and that was really interesting. I think that it's interesting that whatever it is, this the full image or is this a cropped portion of an image? I wonder, because I do see there's a light on in the building or
Yes.
on the other side of it, and then there is a light that's shining on the frame of the building
Yeah.
from the viewer point of view, right? Because it's making the signs light up too. Don't park there.
Yeah. So,
Bridle parking only, by the way, I think
oh,
is what that says.
let me put my glasses on so I can see. Oh yeah. Um, full
Parking for
image.
the queens.
Full image, she says. So can I ask you, Kristen, was this taken with a flash on the camera? And how long ago was it taken? Because I see, like you said, the framing on the windows and stuff is lit. So my question is that a flash that was utilized, or
Mhm.
is it, maybe just light from the street?
Right, because my other thought on it when I see a picture like this,
August 2011.
August of 2011, okay. My other thought is with that green blob there, what was that direction of the image, right?
Yeah.
So, what's off the screen? What's that we don't see? So that then could be reflection of a lamppost or a light or something else inside of the lens.
Yeah.
Um, Again, it's bright, but it's not self-illuminating, which is when we start to see orbs,
And she
spirit
can't
orbs.
remember if she used the flash or not.
Gotcha. It's an
Yeah,
interesting picture, and I love it. I think
it
just
is.
composition, anyways, is a neat picture. Orbs are real iffy when you're taking pictures of orbs or seeing pictures of orbs. They're super duper iffy. Um, and even though, I mean, even still, when you take pictures and you see photographs of human spirits, quote unquote human spirits, right?
Mhm.
I got a photograph that was taken in a basement party of some organization somewhere, and they said that there were these figures of three people that weren't standing there originally, but here's their shadows. Well, thanks to the power of Photoshop, I could alter the image in ways that it made the people appear. So they just didn't remember that the people were in the background, but they were there. So
Mhm.
that was an interesting started out super interesting, but by the time it was done, I think it turned into disappointment for the photographer.
Hmm.
A lot of folks just like I said like that idea of being haunted. Well, oh, do we want to kind of look over some tools of the trade?
Yes, yes, let's do that.
Okay. So my first go-to when on an investigation is the K2 meter. This is an EMF detector. It reads electromagnetic fields. And I want to barely push this in so these lights pop up here, I hope. I'm going to kind of block it from my studio lighting there. But you can see here, see how they light up?
Yep.
And usually on investigations, I probably would say that I might get the first three lights there,
Yeah.
trying to make them just be those three. But anyways, once in a while you get all of them, and then that's
Mhm.
when you run. No, I'm teasing. But every once in a while you can get all of them, right? But I always introduce this at every investigation, even if it's a place I've been before, and I say that this will allow you to give me answers when the answers are yes, and that's when I ask the yes no questions because if they light it up, however much it lights up, that's yes, right?
Yeah.
So then after that, I apologize because, hey, we're about to play a game of 20 questions where I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. And if the answer is yes, you light it up. And if not, but it creates all these beautiful rainbow colors. And I want to see you make those light up just by touching it. And then we do the investigation with this part, right? But Initially, this was used by carpenters and electricians and all to look for electromagnetic fields. Back in the day, they were probably $4 or $5, and as the TV shows got popular, they shot up to about $65, $75.
Mhm.
Nowadays, you can find them ranging multiple prices, um, but it's probably one of my favorite tools to use. Outside of that, um, the PSB-7 radio, it's a broken radio, right? This, when we talk about a spirit box, talk about a voice box because there's nothing spiritual about it. Um, but this is what we're talking about, and they come in different sizes, different models, different shapes. But basically, when it's running, we'll see if we can make it come on here. We got, oh, here we go. It operates just like a radio, the hand radio would. Turn up the volume. But one thing that we do with this, as opposed to what we typically would do with a radio like this, where we would let it get to a station and stop, we set it to scan. Well, when I say it's broken so it doesn't stop on a radio station. It just keeps scanning. So let's sweep forward. And I don't know, can you hear?
Yes.
So all of those, that's running through radio stations at 100 milliseconds, right? So one radio station is basically a, and if you get a from a radio station, you're not looking for that. You don't care, right? We don't
Yeah.
care.
Correct.
What you're looking for are the responses that are yes, no, maybe, um, I am, get out, but any of those types of responses, right? When you hear those through here in real time, you know that you're getting something. So initially, let's just, one quick story. I was at Woodruff Fontaine House. Miss Fontaine, Virginia Fontaine, she stays in her bedroom a lot. She wanders the property, but that's at her doors where I typically get responses from her. And I had the K2 out, and I said, hey, I've got a tool I'd like to try. Would you like to try this with me? And it all lit up. And I said, okay. I said, it's a noisy box. It makes a lot of racket, but what it will do is let me hear you in real time right now. If you will speak loud and slow and clear, but I will count to 3 before you do that. Are you willing to try this? And it lit up, right? K2 lit up. And so I turned it on. I had it set, and I said, 1, 2, 3. And I paused. And through this, I heard a sweet little voice go, hello? And I said, I heard you. I heard you through this. Can you hear me? And then this lit up. Yes. So I think that this took more energy than it takes to do this
Sure.
because that's how the responses were happening, right? Initially you were mentioning a thermometer, right?
Yes.
This is an infrared thermal probe, which means that I want to see if I'm going to turn it this way. So in here, you can see the red light just a little,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So what that does is it shoots a laser out at a particular location or even, somebody's arm or whatever. Don't shoot it at eyes because
No.
if you shoot it at an eyeball, it's a real laser. Can hurt
Yes.
vision, right? And I'll talk about lasers in a second, but it's an infrared thermal probe. And what I've always said about these in investigations and all is that it's not the same type of probe that aliens would come at you with, right? Because you can use this and still walk afterwards. But and nobody steal that, by the way. That's part of my script whenever I create a plan. But so yeah, so for example, my wall there is 72 degrees, my arm is 88, 89, 90. But typically one of the things we've noticed is that temperature will drop within that 10 degrees of when there's a spirit around, it can
Yeah.
drop. Let me say that it can drop within 10 degrees of what's normal temperature, right?
Yes.
It can also increase by about the same. So it can get hotter, which you talked about with the chair, right?
Yeah.
So we see those things kind of happening with these. I'm gonna put this down here because I'm out of pockets. Motion sensors. Okay, you can spend lots of money to get motion sensors for investigations. This is a cat toy.
Ah!
they're not that expensive, right? But you can see all those lights happening in there,
Yes.
right? And so whenever it's still and it's on an area, and you can stomp around it, step around it to make sure that you're not vibrating the space for it to roll, right? Or
Yeah.
to go off, right? So it'll sit like this, right? But you can ask questions, and sometimes this is easier to set off than the K2 meter.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I like to call these motion sensors because if I tell somebody to reach in my kit and hand me my cat balls, please, right?
Mm-mm.
Doesn't sound very professional.
No.
Also, the other thing about those is that they're round. And so if there's enough energy there and the spirit happens to want to knock it off or roll it across the table, it's a secondary useful tool in that regard.
Yeah.
Get a good flashlight when you go out on investigations, but you want to get the kind that, so we've got the bright white light, right?
Yes.
When you're in a dark area investigating, two things that will make you want to put somebody into the spirit realm. One is if they take a picture and they don't say flash, so you can guard your eyes from that flash. Because those bright lights like this burn to the back of your skull, it feels like, when they pop on flashes in this. If you can find a flashlight, though, that uses
It
the
has
red
red.
light,
Yes. Hmm.
right? That's why when you see police cars at night lit up, inside there's a red light. That red light does not hurt your eyes so much. Also, never aim up like I'm doing now. These are for the floor, right? Aim these at the floor, not toward people, because again, they may want to put you in the spirit realm if you blind them with it.
Yes.
You don't have anything else up here? Um, a Gauss meter. This is called a Gauss master, right? But the thing I love about these, let's see if I could you hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that sound that it makes, it's got a range on there, 0 to 10, right? Um, it makes a sound as it goes through. Let's see if I can make it. Okay, you hear that?
Yeah.
All right. So there's a button on the side that turns it on, but you can also make it go to a higher constant or read. You can make it go to another level, right? So it
Yeah.
can read all of the electricity. And right now, with all of the stuff on in here, it's going off crazy. And this is also that high squeal is setting my dog off. I don't know if you can
Oh,
hear her. But so yeah, so when I do the initial sweep through a property, and I'm trying to see where all of the energy is concentrating in that property, this
yeah.
is the tool that I use for the baseline readings. Because if I don't hit that button and it still squeals like that,
Yes.
that tells me what I need to know, right? K2 meter plus this gives you really good baseline readings throughout. The other thing that I was going to mention about lasers is the laser grid, right? And I don't have batteries in mine, and I should have thought about it in advance, but I don't use that a lot. But in one investigation, for example, there was a shape in a photograph that when I got a picture of the property owner that had died there, it matched perfect to
Hmm.
his shape. So I'm assuming that that shape within the laser grid was him, right? But what happens is that it shoots out all of these little lasers into that area, um, little green speckles all over the wall, the hall, the ceiling, the floor. It's all there. But what you're watching for is when, I don't know if this will change it or not, but you see how that middle line of my glasses is altering my big head
Yes.
as I move through. So what you're watching for is for that laser grid to have sort of that same flow of change. And when that happens, that's when you realize, oh, there's motion in that grid. Now, I get excited about things and I step into stuff a little too quickly, right? Um, and more times than not, if there's a laser grid on, I turn the corner and walk straight into the light looking at it because I'm not thinking. I'm excited about this experience, the thing that's going on.
Yeah.
That's also I've had an attachment before. That's because I got excited and I chased an actual orb in a cemetery that was visibly bright enough that multiple people in that group saw it up on the hill at Oak Hill Cemetery in Alabama. And I ran up and I mean, look, y'all, I don't run, right? I ran up a hill, my eyes focused, jumping headstones to get to this thing. And when I got probably within 10 feet of it, it started going away from me. It was about ping pong ball size too, by the way. And as it went away from me, it just kind of faded and went away. And I just stopped chasing and I stood there and I looked around and I said, "Are you going to materialize? Like I came all the way up here to meet you. Where are you? What's up?" Right. Um, and nothing happened. I said, "Look, I don't run. I just ran up this hill for you. I'm going to have a heart attack. Before I do this, I put a leaf on a rock. It was still that night, like no wind. I said, I put this leaf on this rock. Knock this off the rock for me, please. Just knock it off." And nothing. And I said, "Okay, you did what you're doing. I'm going back to the group." And as I walked down to the group, one of the people from the cemetery said, "You have a light following you." And I said, "Ha ha, I'm thinking she's making fun."
Yeah.
And somebody else said it. And I went, "Ha ha," thinking they're making fun. We got back to the hotel, and one of our actual team members goes, "Oh, by the way," and I said, "Oh, heck," right? Um, ends up that it became an attachment, and I had to get a friend of mine named Renee. You can find her through angeliccomfort.com. But she had to astral project into Memphis to withdraw this from me.
Hmm.
And again, much longer story for another time. Um, but all of that to say, yeah, excitement is cool and all. Just don't run into the lasers. It's damaging to your eyes.
Yeah.
Bifocals, folks. I'm in bifocals now. Of course, I'm
Mm.
old, so so it happens. So those are the tools that I mainly use. I've got an audio recorder, but you can use an audio recorder on your phone.
Yeah.
So you can look for electronic voice phenomenon. Um, you're just trying to record what they may be saying that you're not hearing with your own ears. That's your
Hmm.
electronic voice phenomenon. There's three types of electronic voice phenomenon. Do we know what they are? If not, I can tell them. Shall I tell them?
Tell them.
Yay! So, Class A EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon, that's when you hear hello and you know that it's hello, right? It's clear. You understand it. Class B EVPs are where they say hello and we think it could be hello or it could be hail. We don't know, but we hear
Yeah.
something and we know we're hearing something. We just can't say exactly what that is that we're hearing. So, it could be anything. Class C EVP is where they say hello, and what you hear is
Hmm.
right. You don't know anything about what they're saying, but you know you're specifically hearing something,
Yes.
and that's your Class C EVP. So you can get that on your phone audio recorder. You can get that on a you know just get a audio recorder here, which I'm not taking out of the bag and plugging up.
Yeah.
And then also I got this for $10 at some store. I forgot which one now, but it's a external speaker that plugs into the voice box, so it
Oh,
just makes that much
amplifies. Yeah.
right, much louder. Um, one of our friends has a portal which is connected to a voice box, but it clears out all of the extra static and such, so that you just get the clear vocals, right?
Hmm.
And that's what we used in the case where whatever was there gripping my face and
Yeah.
keeping the lady from talking and saying, "Hey, shut up, shh, be quiet." We could hear it so clearly through that.
Huh.
But that was a portal, and I don't have one of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's some of this right here.
Well, I find in EVPs are interesting because I think, like you mentioned, the various classes, and unless it's like super right out there, you hear it, you know what it says, then it's very subjective. Because I can't tell
Mhm.
you how many times I've been watching, one of the TV shows, and they're playing this thing over and over, listening to it, and I can tell you exactly what I hear. I hear that it said, "Why are you here?" And they go, it sounds like it says, "I wanna drive a car." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, that's not what I heard." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, I think that's what it says." And then when they
Mhm.
present the evidence, they're like, "Did this guy have a car?" Well, I don't know, because and sometimes it's you know, one person hears something, the other person hears something else, and yeah, I don't know.
Well, and part of the you'll notice that one of the things I said earlier when I'm talking to them, the spirits, about communicating with us, is to speak loud and slow and clear, right?
Yeah,
Because I want to make sure I'm hearing them well. Because you might have somebody respond, and it might come, the energy that they're using for that might make their vocals come through so fast you miss it, or they might be too quiet, and underneath the static and any other noise you miss their opportunity. So I
yeah,
went to the grave of a famous musician who I am a giant fan of, and I'm keeping it anonymous because I don't want people going there and doing this, right?
sure.
But I got there and I had two friends with me when this happened, right? Um, and but I put out the voice box and the K2 meter and I asked, "Are you here?" Right? And immediately, loud and slow and clear, came back, "I am." And we all just sat there and looked at each other, and I said, "Great, thank you." And as I got ready to ask the next question, a tractor in the cemetery came on. There's no way I could record anything else and it be heard over the tractor in the cemetery,
Hmm.
right? They were digging a grave. Great day to be there doing that when I've driven almost 4 hours to get there. Anyways, so I also, I know now also to take $20 with me to tell the guy, hey, if you just give me about an hour before you
Yeah,
do any, here's $20. Oh, okay. All right. So, for another $20, I'll wash your car. Not right now, but but that was, again, it's one of those spots where you instruct, please speak loud and slow and clear so that we can pick that up because you don't want them to have. What was that? I don't know. Well, that's class C at this point. Well, let's slow it down. Okay, what was it when you slow it down? Blah, 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 blah. Well, still class C. I don't know.
yeah,
You have to ask them to do certain things. The other
yeah.
thing that I ask is for them to wait until I ask the question out loud before answering, because when we were doing the downtown tours, and I'm doing the investigation in the second hour, like I said, I was actually investigating for the crowd,
Mhm.
but bringing them in when it was okay. But I would ask the spirits at that point, please wait, because I would think of a question and then the K2 meter would pop, the lights rather would light up, and that was my answer for yes to the question in my head, right?
Yeah.
Or I would think of the question, and then the voice box would be, no,
Hmm.
can you give me a minute? So I started making sure that not just to ask to speak loud and slow and clear, but also please wait until I ask this out loud
Yeah.
so other people can hear it, right? And so, I don't do a whole lot of rules when it comes to dealing with the spirits because they're being kind enough to use all of that energy to communicate with me, and that's not something they have to do, right? Because you can go to some properties and investigate, and it's haunted. Woodruff Fontaine, I've been there before. We had a group when it was two husbands whose wives brought them, and they didn't want to be there because there was a game that
Mm.
night. And when we all gathered later in the basement, three teams. First team, what happened to you guys on the first floor? Oh, all these great things. Second team, what happened to you guys? These things happened. Kevin, what happened in your team? None. Well, second floor, all these great things. Second team, all these great things. Kevin, none. Like nothing happened for our group because, why? If I go to a party, this is what one of my friends uses as an example. Tanya says, if you go to a party and you see somebody standing over at the corner and they're just kind of like, you know, is that the person you're going to go talk to, or are you going to go over here to this person who's standing there with, something in their hand here, and they're like, "Hey, how are you? What's going on? Yeah, oh, I'm
Yeah.
having a great time." That's the person you want to go to, right? And that's kind of the same thing with investigations. If you're standoffish, they're not going to want to waste any energy on you. So I'm always thankful whenever they come over, and I thank them at the end of the investigation. Also, thank you, even if it's something that's not necessarily what I would consider kind. I would still say thank you because they've given us some communication to work with.
Yeah.
Now, the housekeeping rules, the instructions, the rules, I put that on the living people. So first and foremost, every single time, even though greased up, slick haired, muscle bound, tattooed up guys on TV will go in and provoke, and I still hate that the hand never reached up out of the hole and dragged him to hell. But you, if you provoke, you're a horrible investigator. You're in their territory. Are you going to walk up to some stranger's house and start telling them, hey, that my buddy Steven, he uses that example as a matter of fact. You don't walk into a stranger's house and start demanding things of them because they're going to punch you, right?
Yeah.
And I love when he tells that because it's important. People should never provoke. It's just rude. It's a horrible thing to do. But, other things is it's not your property. Respect the property, right?
Yeah.
You don't just
Very true.
walk up to a place, you get invited to the place, right? So somebody was telling me one day, you should go check out such and such property. Okay, do you know who owns it? Yeah, we'll have them contact me. And I'll go if they say okay. I'm not just going to walk up there. That's trespassing. You don't want to do that. That's
Yeah.
illegal. So but respect the property, respect the spirits. That's easy to do, right? And then I also tell folks whenever we're investigating, two people, because if you experience something by yourself and you don't have your tools out to record it, it's just a story, right?
Correct.
Considered a personal experience, and that's not a bad thing. But if there's two of you and you both experience it and you're both saying the same story, that's a lot better evidence than, hey, I was down here and a fish floated through the wall like it was swimming and I don't understand it, but it came right by me and I swear I smelled Captain D's.
Was he
You know,
singing?
that fish was singing as it came through there, and it was like yo ho, but it didn't say anything about a pirate. It was a
Oh,
class C EVP at that point.
okay.
It said blah 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 blah. Right. So like one person coming in with a story, that's just a story. Two people coming in with the same story
You've
is a little
corroborated
bit
it.
more believable, right?
Yeah.
Also for safety purposes, because if you go down in that basement by yourself and you trip and fall over and get hurt, and nobody on the other floors can hear you, well, you're just laying down there hurt, right?
Yeah.
So it's always better to have a second person with you. So that way, if you don't fall down and get hurt, great. They can push you down. No, I'm teasing. But if you fall down and get hurt, there's somebody there to help, right?
Yes.
So it's also about that safety as well as experience. So those are just some of the things I say. Another thing is anybody that wants to investigate, I met somebody one time and they said, I want to investigate the paranormal. I said, great. Why? So, well, they do it on TV. Like, that's your reason why. Okay. It's not a good reason. Like, I expect that people who are investigating the paranormal are there for a couple of reasons. One, you've got questions you want answers to.
Hmm.
That's me. Two, you're trying to help the family, the property owner, the business owner, whatever it is, because they have not humiliated themselves, but I mean, maybe at some point, but they have humbled themselves to a point to come to you for help about something they're experiencing, right? And, they don't want to be crazy
Yeah.
and they're not crazy just because they're experiencing it. But they need somebody to help them. So that's one of the other main reasons you go in is to help somebody out. And not just to run around in the dark and play Scooby Doo. And I spent a lot of money on stuff to do experiments at one investigation at that first group I was a part of years
Yeah.
ago that we went on. And I came back to it and I was amazed that a little toy car, I put down this baby powder, right? And then put the stuff on it. This toy car had moved about a quarter of an inch, and a candy that I had on a wrapper because it was in a children's ward of a hospital.
Yeah.
The candy in the wrapper had been opened. There were no fingerprints around it. So all of these things, I was just wow, 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 right? Come to find out that some of the folks that had been on that investigation with us went in and did all of that as a joke. Now, I've spent all this money to travel there, hotel, gas, food, all this stuff for me. I didn't care that they wasted their money, but also I spent that money for the stuff. And then
Yeah.
they did
Yeah.
all of this. It's like, oh, that's not cool. Right? So
No.
at that point, the shadow people that we saw that was peeking out from behind multiple poles in this one atrium area, I threw it out. A photograph I had of a self-illuminating orb that we saw in the basement. It had the tail behind it. This is back in the days when you sent the film off to Fox Photo to get your
Yes.
print
Yes.
6 or 8 weeks later. Yeah, forgot about it. The music box we heard on one of the floors, where there was no music box when we inspected it, forget about it. Because at that point, how do I know that what I'm seeing isn't an effect of what these little people were doing
Yeah.
playing? Not to
Exactly.
mention, one of them was a dispatch for a police department, brought a gun and chased a college student out of the building, and had two college students out of the building and cornered behind a bush next to a porch. So yeah, why
Yeah.
did you bring a gun to this? Well, for safety. Like, what are you going to do? Kill a ghost? Come on,
Yeah.
you know. Now I say that, but say some crazy person walked in there on us, I would have probably been thankful at that point.
Yeah.
But as it is, no crazy person did, so I'm not thankful. Um, but I talked our way out of that whole deal. Hey
Mm.
kids, you don't tell anybody you were here. We won't tell anybody you were here, and you'll be okay. Okay, okay, bye. And I sent
Yeah.
them packing. Reverse psychology or whatever that is. I gaslit them so bad to get them out of there, and then I screamed about the gun, which is not a tool to take on an investigation. Just
No.
no.
Well, it is. It's been nearly 2 hours since we were chatting because it. I mean, I could talk all night about this, but I think we should
Oh yeah,
probably end up wrapping up tonight's show. Um, Thank you very much for you know, um, your time, and
yeah.
it
Thank
was great. And definitely we need to talk more about this
you.
stuff. And what I'm going to try to do is um so the books that you gave me, the names of the books that you gave me, and even the equipment that you use, if you can send that to me in a message, and I will post. I'll try to see if I can find links to that stuff and post
Mhm.
it in the comments to the YouTube. So if
Yeah,
anyone is interested in reading up more, we can have what books we talked about, and if anyone's interested in getting any of the equipment, they can see exactly what it is that we have.
exactly. And also outside of this, if anybody's got a question, uh, that could be directed to, and I don't want to post this because somebody will copy it and it goes to junk mail
Yeah,
that way. But you can hear it and you can email me at mpro paranormal at gmail.com.
excellent.
mpro at no, I'm sorry, mpro paranormal at gmail.com.
All right,
Perfect.
that is great. And again, thank you very much. And thank you, anyone that for you guys that were here and asking questions and stuff. And
And thank you, Kristen, for sharing pictures. That was awesome.
Yes, that was great. That was great. And I will tell everyone, have a happy Halloween, have a spooky Halloween, watch some scary movies. And yes, thank you all very much for joining us tonight. I'm going to end the
Yes.
stream.